Hi guys, welcome back at Sports with Mono and Mono, and I'm Jim, and I'm here with Steve, who is, of course, my partner in this endeavor.
Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful Saturday here on May 16th here in Tony, North Jersey.
All right?
Hope everybody's doing well.
Yep.
We're golfing tomorrow, Jim,
Supposed to anyway.
right?
So that means golf courses are opening up, which means Major League Baseball is working on a plan and so forth, right?
I think working on a plan is pretty much the stage you're in. I think we should open up with kind of that. I think there was some news in baseball this week.
Bring it on.
Well, Blake Snell, he's a lefty pitcher on Tampa Bay. I think he won the Cy Young, actually.
He did win the Cy Young.
2 years ago.
He did.
And
That gives him the forum.
well, yeah, he signed a 4-year, I think a $10 million contract. $10 million a year, and
Right.
so Manfred had a meeting with the Players Association, and of all the four sports, the Major League Baseball Players Association is probably the most powerful of all four. I'm confident in it.
NFL's pretty close.
Now, Major League Baseball's never had anybody ever walk across the picket line, ever, right? And then when you think about what Marvin Miller did with the Players Association,
We talked about him.
it's
on the
all
show,
about
right?
the money.
Right.
So Blake Snell makes a comment saying, I'm not going to play and risk coronavirus unless I'm being paid, I guess a full salary, but the bottom line is it's going to be a prorated salary where they have to negotiate with the Players Association.
Do you think he has a gripe? I mean, I wanted to bring this up too because it's kind of interesting to me. If he's not working, why should he be getting paid? Is he any different than anybody else that lost their job?
Listen, I get the numbers. I get that these guys make.
They're astronomical.
Yeah, but it comes from the fans here, okay? So this is a unique situation where obviously no fans are going to be in the stands
For a while, at
40% of the revenue that Major League Baseball takes in comes from home games and
Concessions and all that
and
kind of
everything that goes with it.
stuff. Right.
So I think Blake Snell, probably his message was maybe misinterpreted. Could have come out better.
Misconstrued, if you will.
Misconstrued. And when you hear him speak, he came kind of across as an arrogant douchebag, to be honest, in my opinion.
And what's he making? 20 million
He's
a
making
year?
10.
Or something? 10. All right.
All right, and he's a kid that's been in the league for about 3, 4, 5 years max, and played for the minimum, which is probably 500 or
And
something.
had a career year, wins the
the
Cy
side,
Young.
but that's what it's about. It's perform on the field, and then get your payday, right? And it's the same thing with the Yankees. I mean, Judge and Sanchez and Torres and all the young guys, they're paying their dues.
And they're going
right?
to have to get paid. When
Well,
this is all
they
said
got
and
they
done.
got their raises. They're making a couple million now, but Gleyber Torres is basically in his second year. He's still making 600, that type of thing. So the
Yeah.
bottom line is there has to be concessions on both sides. Now, I'm also now of the belief that there's not a high probability, but a chance. I don't think Major League Baseball may even play.
Listen,
I
they're-
think of those sports. I think that Major League Baseball is the one sport I would say that I have a little bit of doubt if they can get this season on.
I don't think they're going to play 162.
No,
games.
they're gonna
You know,
play 100.
if that. Right. I think it's coming back. I think baseball with no fans is better than no baseball at all. And the staggering numbers. And listen, we have no sympathy for these owners that are losing. Right. These are billionaires anyway. These are their toys they're playing. They run own Major League Baseball teams.
Right.
So, but I don't think Blake Snell should get paid for not playing like everybody else.
Blake Snell's
every
going to
other
get a
citizen in this
prorated
country.
salary like they all will, okay? But it's also a unique situation where if they're going to play, there has to be concessions, okay? And I think they're in negotiation here.
All right.
But switching gears then to, the NBA, Chris Paul comes out this morning, actually, or late yesterday.
He's the head of the players union, I think.
So
right?
Chris Paul's not a dummy. I think Chris Paul, you see him on State Farm, and he's a marketable guy, but he's the head of the Players Association.
And what was he talking about today?
They said they're kind of all on board. I mean, he's talking for the players, so I think the NBA is closer, and the NHL is trying to do what they can to get back on the ice.
I think there's a better chance of Major League Baseball getting underway and the basketball season being canceled.
No, I think
we'd be in the
opposite.
second round of the playoffs right now if this was the NBA. So we're going to push, and then when do you start the following season? Right?
I say it's the opposite. I say the NBA will come back, and I think there's more of a probability that Major League Baseball, because of the players' union,
Okay.
I think there's a better chance that Major League Baseball doesn't come back.
And I'm going to go the other way. And like I said, that's what opinions are about, right? Everyone's got one.
Sure.
But I just can't see the NBA getting back in. Like I said, this would be the second round of the playoffs already.
Right.
And they're going to try to squeeze in another 40 games? Is it going to be a 40 game?
I have no idea what it's going to be.
Right? Everybody gets in, that kind of stuff. So, that's still, these are things that are, happening. Like I said, NASCAR's coming back and PGA Golf is coming back. But again, with the no fans or, you got to get your temperature taken to get in and you can't buy a hot dog at the beach, right? This is all the stuff that we've been living with for 8 weeks now.
Sure, but back to baseball, it's not only about the money, it's about the safety of the players. I get that. So, they're also talking about a lab in Utah where the players would be tested multiple, probably on a daily basis would be my guess. And then the test results would go to this lab in Utah, come back within 24 hours.
Right.
So there's a lot of details to work through. So.
All right, but just for the record, my opinion on the Blake Snell thing, he's entitled to his opinion, but he shouldn't get paid if the guy who sells hot dogs doesn't get paid either. It's just how I feel about it.
No, that's
and they make a lot of money, these guys. So even a prorated thing, right? Something.
Right.
Anyway, but
To be determined.
exactly. But listen, sticking with baseball, I wanted to bring something up. And like I said, we've all been quarantined and so forth, so we've had an opportunity to see things, sports that we did see or things that we didn't see. Don Larson's perfect game, 1956. Name the two broadcasters who called the game.
I would probably Mel Allen.
Mel Allen, of course, would
Red
be one
Barber?
of them. Nope.
Mel Allen and
Another 16-year
Vin Scully.
Vin Scully.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But it was awesome. It's actually the first time we've seen nothing but highlights of Mickey Mantle and how unbelievable he was. Watched the full game with him. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the production you can get today with the games like 3D and you're sitting there on the field.
Pretty much one camera angle.
It literally was one camera angle. But Jackie Robinson playing third base for the Brooklyn Dodgers, it was amazing. It was amazing.
And then the background story on that is, Don Larson was out drinking till 5:30 in the morning or something, and Don Larson, passed away. It was a notable passing
Recently.
a few months ago on
Recently.
the show.
Yep.
Don Larson, could drink every bit as much as Mantle and Billy Martin.
That's
and the
saying
rest of
something,
them,
though.
right?
Boy, that's saying something.
But that perfect game, Larson got hammered and literally came back home around 5:30 and got up and throws the only perfect game in World Series history. I mean,
awesome.
you can't make it up.
The classic Yogi jumping in his arms, that's a classic picture,
It's
right?
a
One of
great picture.
the top 2-3 pictures ever in Major League
It's
Baseball,
outstanding.
right? But it was cool to see, and I watched it. But you would look, you're right, Don Larson. Today you see these kids, they're chiseled and, they look so young and vibrant. He looked like he should have been plowing a field, a cornfield in Nebraska,
That's right.
right?
Yep.
And he pitched a perfect
the
game.
baggy pants and
On the biggest stage, and it was very, very cool.
Yeah.
I did want to bring up one thing about it, an observation from a baseball fan perspective. The umpire didn't have one of those balloons, those chest protectors that they used to hold and strap around their back.
right, the old Bill Kunkel
Exactly.
balloon.
but this was 1956.
Yep.
And they didn't have it back then. But then I watched the 75 series of the Reds and the Red Sox, the Ed Armbrister game, the
Yeah.
big controversy about the bunt, which I want to touch base with in a second. But isn't that weird? They didn't have that back then, so they had something under their uniform. And then they went to they find out that didn't work, so they go to the balloon.
Yeah.
And that's what we grew up with, playing Little League Baseball. All the umpires had those things,
Absolutely.
right? Always ripped and,
Exactly, no doubt.
stuffed in the bat bag.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing.
The giant chest protector, the balloon chest protector.
But isn't it weird? It was 56, didn't have one. 75, they had one. And then,
Wow.
we haven't seen those
It's
in what,
it's the
30
same.
years?
It's the same concept of a hockey goalie not wearing a mask back in the Glenn Halls and
Which we
all
talked
that.
about
Right.
when Ed Jockeyman against the Boston Bruins in 1970.
If there's anything more insane than that, please.
Really, send us an email at sportswithmono@mono.com. By the way, this sport...
Other than wrestling alligators or something.
Exactly. But this, of course, this segment, the baseball segment, was brought to you by Coriano Trucking of Haverstraw, New York. Thank you, and hope your family's well.
Yep, absolutely.
But it was really cool to watch, and like I said, I watched The Big Red Machine, 1975, right? We could name every person on the Reds on
That's
that
right.
infield and outfield.
We remember watching it live too. I know
We did.
We did.
But it looked, they had, this was 1975, right? Mind you,
October,
less than 20 years from the Don Larson perfect game.
right?
And they had the standard, Sparky Anderson in the dugout with the black spikes and stuff. It was so cool.
The high Red Sox.
But the Armbrister thing, I thought I wouldn't have called it. Fisk went nuts. Darrell Johnson went nuts.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
remember?
manager of the Red Sox, Darrell Johnson.
Oh, and you could see Sparky Anderson laughing on the inside in the dugout for the Reds.
Yeah.
It was awesome. But I would have said no. I didn't think so. But Kubek and Kirk Gowdy both said, they thought it should have been.
I think he should have been out myself.
I thought that. Really? I
do.
I think the batter has an opportunity. He's heading toward first base. But the net of the play was that Fisk threw it high and they were safe in first and second. And then they intentionally walked Pete Rose and loaded the bases for Joe Morgan and, went on to win. 75 series was awesome. Right?
Back-to-back MVP, Joe Morgan.
The Big Red Machine, right?
That's right.
Was unbelievable.
No, they were fantastic.
And we
Tony
went-
Perez,
and
Joe
you-
Morgan.
And you and I went to a World Series game and saw the Cincinnati Reds Big Red Machine in 1976
That is correct.
in
folks.
Yankee Stadium on an ice cold October night. It was-
Game 3.
right.
And it was a freezing cold night.
And one Johnny Bench hit a home run
He
in
had
that
2
game.
home runs. And Fred Norman started for the Reds
Yeah.
against Eduardo
Figueroa.
Figueroa for the Yankees. But the Yankees got swept.
Yep.
And, I mean, it was the best thing for them because obviously,
It came back and won the next two.
77, 78. So those were during the Thurman years. And Billy Martin, was
Here's
the
an
manager.
obscure fact in that game.
We
I
love that era.
I
Love
think
it.
Jim Mason actually hit a home run.
Jim Mason did hit a home run in that game, number 22.
Right.
That's correct. And that's pretty much the only run production that we had that night.
We had pretty good seats for that.
We had great seats. Our father had season tickets, maybe 15 rows behind the Yankee dugout,
Yeah.
right?
Right. You were what, 11 years old or
I was
something at the
11
time?
years old. Absolutely.
That's funny.
Yep.
But it was awesome. But like I said, I got an opportunity to see some stuff that we haven't seen in a while. So, Steve, let's move on to football real quick.
Sure.
I saw something very cool, and we've talked about this. And there's 2 points I want to make. The show A Football Life on NFL Network, it's awesome.
Yes, it's great.
When it's about players that deserve to have a football life documentary on them.
Okay.
And it got watered down because there was literally a football life on Ocho Cinco, and I go, really? This is the same one you
Pass.
Exactly, right? Now you watered it down a little bit. But I did see one on Joe Green. Outstanding.
Oh, I've seen it multiple times.
Outstanding.
Oh, my God.
And his name really wasn't even Joe. It's like Charles Edward or something. But he was growing up, and they put a reference that he looked like Joe Louis.
Yeah, North Texas.
North Texas State.
North Texas State,
Right?
absolutely.
Didn't Michael Strahan go to North Texas State as well?
Uh,
think
or
so.
Texas State or something.
No, I think it's the same one.
Yeah. I'm not a Michael Strahan guy,
Either am I, but
and I'm not watching a football life on Michael Strahan.
Of course
I can
not.
tell you that.
but
But the Mean Joe Green thing was, yeah.
it was outstanding.
Yeah, and it just gives you
The
an
Steel
idea.
Curtain and the interviews with Andy Russell and Jack
Yeah.
Ham, who we worshipped,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Jack Lambert, that team.
Jack, well, Mean Joe
The
Green.
Steel Curtain was
Mean Joe Green was as mean as his nickname indicated on the field. There's so many highlights there in this of him punching guys and late hits and wrestling guys.
I know.
You didn't screw with this guy. man.
Even he admitted it. though,
All-time Hall of Famer Joe Green.
Yep.
All time.
But it was so awesome to follow this, and the highlights of this Pittsburgh Steelers. It was so amazing.
Right.
And they had three of them in a row. One was Mean Joe Green, which I watched, of course, right?
Right.
Terry Bradshaw, which I would not watch, and then Chuck Noll. I mean, how unbelievable.
Yeah. that
And the
was
reason, yeah, like I said, we've talked about it before. Terry Bradshaw didn't go to Chuck Noll's funeral, which is appalling to us as football fans, and we appreciate his talent. And he won 4 Super Bowls. Didn't go to Chuck Noll's thing.
huge demerit.
I mean, how do you even get past that?
I don't know. Yeah.
Where would Terry Bradshaw be without Chuck Noll? And he didn't go.
Right.
Anyway, but the Joe Green thing, the highlights were amazing.
Absolutely. It seemed
I didn't know about this little nerve damage he had in his left arm in the last 5 years of his career. That's why he kind of looked, he wasn't the dominant player he was, in the beginning of his career. Remember, they were 1-13 in his first 2 seasons or
That's
something.
right.
And he goes, "This isn't the place for me." It was
That's
funny.
right.
Very cool to see.
That's when the Steelers wore white on white, too.
Yeah, that was awesome. It really was.
But currently in the NFL, let's talk about the elephant in the room. So,
Right.
the New York Giants. So, 2019, the New York Giants, with the first round selection, move up to get DeAndre Baker, cornerback out of Georgia.
Okay.
Okay.
Which
And-
I thought was a good pick. We liked him. Good
Sure.
collegiate player. We've
And-
seen him
and-
play
and
many
here
times.
we are. We wake up yesterday morning to the news that, he gets arrested for quote-unquote armed robbery with Quentin Dunbar.
Safety for the
Who
Seahawks.
played in Florida and
Yep.
etc. And the point is,
I haven't seen anything on it
innocent
today.
until proven guilty. Of course, the attorneys are saying that this is all a big misunderstanding.
What are your sources telling
Oh
us,
my
Steve?
God!
I
The
mean,
fact that they were even having this discussion is sickening.
right.
Really?
I haven't seen any details on it today. I know it was happening, and they got a warrant out, and a picture in the post office kind of thing.
Oh
you know.
yeah. Dillinger. Public enemy number one.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
So we shall see. But the bottom line, it's bad PR for the Giants. It's bad PR for Dave Gettleman. It's they selected Eli Apple with the number 1 pick a few years ago.
That was a bust.
Yeah, well,
That was a bust.
well, DeAndre Baker. I don't know what's going to happen here. Do the Giants cut ties with him just because of just even the appearance of this? If it turns out,
Appearance of impropriety,
well,
as they call it.
it's a bad scene. It's a bad look.
All right. Well, like I said, if you've heard something since I heard that they're looking for this guy, I mean, has anything
they're
else
gonna-
come out? I mean,
No, it's just that the attorneys are
they
saying,
walked in with guns at a party and
Well, the witness
pistol
said-
whipped some guy.
Well, the witnesses are maybe changing their stories, but to me, that means behind the scenes, the attorneys are offering some big cash, under the table to get some stories.
Gee, that never happens in
No.
law enforcement.
No.
Yeah, no.
But it's a bad look, and we shall see. But all the Giant fans I've talked to have been shaking their heads, saying how ridiculous this is.
Well, listen, while we're talking about the NFL, and our NFL segment is sponsored by Lynch Motors of Manchester, Connecticut,
Right?
loyal sponsor of the show.
Yep.
Thank you. I did watch the highlights of that Bills Oilers
The Music City Miracle.
No, the one in '92. Where the
Right.
Oilers were up 35-3. The Frank Reich game.
Warren Moon.
It was unbelievable. The turn of events that happened.
And what's funny about Frank Reich, he did the same thing when he was playing at Maryland. They came back, Maryland against Miami.
He did.
Yeah,
He
like
did.
kind of the same situation. I don't know if the score was the exact same.
This
It
was
might have been.
This was 35-3.
Well, this was pretty bad too, and Frank Reich is did it in college and did it in the NFL.
But this game was amazing. But there was so many little things that happened in the game that said if that didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened. But it did happen. Went to overtime.
Who it was? Glanville, the coach of Houston, or OA, Bum Phillips. I think it was Glanville.
It had to be Glanville, I
Right?
think. Yeah. And Marv Levy, obviously. for the
Obviously,
Bills.
Elvis didn't pick up his 2 tickets that day.
So he was able to coach
Oh, Glanville is famous for he always left 2 tickets for Elvis Presley.
in case he wanted to show up. You know, he can get off from his job and pumping gas in Michigan.
Exactly. With Jimmy Hoffa.
No, but it was very cool to see. There was some cool players in it, and
But that's the thing about Corona. We're watching, old stuff, but good stuff, and
Yep.
obviously that resonated for you. But
it sure
yeah,
did.
for the fans that are kind of younger and looking for things to watch, definitely catch that. It's
Yeah, I
one
remember.
of the great comebacks of all time, if not the greatest.
It was literally 35-3,
Right?
and it just didn't look like there was any possibility that something could happen. And we were watching that game.
That's right.
We didn't turn it off. We never turned off a game back then, right?
No.
But for an ending like that, it was amazing. It was very, very cool. So, anything new on the Dak Prescott thing before we move off on the NFL?
No, I mean there was a little piece on.
They're going to
Dak.
pay him. Are they going to pay him?
I think. Well, they got till July 15th to work a long-term deal out. If they don't, they
Oh.
franchise him. So I mean, he's playing for another.
He's still
year.
on the hook no matter what, right?
Well, they're going to franchise him, and it'll probably franchise him for $30 million, maybe
Right, he's-
31.
Doesn't he still get $30 million for the franchise? I was going to say.
Yeah. So we shall see.
Is it the Cowboys playing hardball, or is it this guy's expectations a little?
They got till
little
July
greedy?
15th. There's no need to, they're going to work it out.
As a Cowboy fan, is this guy worthy of being paid
Yes.
the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the NFL?
We've talked about this multiple times.
And you
It-
say yes?
It's the market.
No, but
I think Dak is a top 10 quarterback. I'm not
Okay,
saying
top
he's,
10.
I'm not saying he's top 3, top 4, top 5. I'm not.
that's what I'm asking.
But we've invested in him for 4 years. He's a good kid.
I like
Got
him.
great characteristics.
We liked him in college.
but
We
the
watched
point
him.
is, people are going to be like, "How can you pay him?" Because that's what the market is.
That I get.
Okay.
But I'm asking you, is he worth $40 million? You know, if Aaron Rodgers
There's
is
no
only
need-
making
We're not
28
paying him
million.
more than Aaron Rodgers. Okay. We're
I'm
gonna
sure
pay
there's
him,
a clause in Rodgers'
Listen,
contract that
we're
says
going
no
to
matter
pay him
who
probably
gets.
$35 million. That's it. That's the market.
That's it.
So what are we supposed to do? Break it down? We just draft C.D. Lamb, who, by the way, looks pretty damn good.
I was going to ask you about that. They're kind of touting it.
Yeah,
like
he
this kid.
actually, he looks like a big body.
But we also thought
Guy.
Hartley Dykes was going to be a great
we
player.
did.
Right?
No, believe me, I'm not sold yet. There's a lot to see, but
There is a lot of talent there. I'll give you that.
He does. He looks the part. I'll just say that for now.
Okay.
But
I got it.
that
That does give them a lot of weapons on the outside.
Yeah,
with-
but
with
my
Cooper,
point
you
is,
know.
so what, do the Cowboys just walk away from Dak Prescott, and what? Who are we supposed to start over with?
I'm not suggesting they cut ties with him. That would be ludicrous. I'm just saying if
Then they
if
have
he
to
says
pay him.
if I don't get $45 million a year, I'm not playing for you, then I say have a good life.
It's not going to do that. The
And,
more
and the big redhead comes in, leads you guys to a Super Bowl. How Cinderella would that be?
Andy Dalton will be there for 1 year most likely, and that's it. He's an upgraded backup. Cooper Rush has been my backup for freaking 3 years.
Yeah, and the Giants gave him a raise, Cooper Rush. You know, I guess, you know.
Well, the Cowboys. Cooper Rush is the Cowboys' backup quarterback.
No, he left. He's at the Giants.
Oh, Cooper Rush is?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Well, that's the Jason Garrett.
Of
connection,
course,
right.
that's the connection.
So, okay. So Andy Dalton is my backup, and that's an upgrade over Cooper Rush. So.
So listen, let's move on real quick to the NBA, right? And you and I had some conversations about this, and I'm saying I just can't see them fitting in the season. But there was something I wanted to bring up about NBA Hall of Famers never to have a ring, right? And I asked you this question offline, and you gave me the two answers that I would expect you to give me.
Right.
And there were some other ones that you say, oh, really? I forgot about that.
And there are a couple good names.
Give me the two names you said right off the top. And I said, you know, Hall of Famers, NBA, who don't have rings.
Right. Barkley.
Barkley.
Who else?
You said Ewing, right off the...
I said Ewing.
Right? And in parentheses, Starks, which I think is a joke. And I love The Last Dance, the way he just ate John Starks for lunch. It was so funny.
John
Because
Stark,
in New York, John Starks is considered a legend.
not in my mind.
Exactly, but you know what I'm talking about there. But the NBA guys that Hall of Famers that don't have rings.
You said a good one is George Iceman Gervin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Never won a championship.
And then what I said to you was Gervin came in when, you know, the NBA and ABA kind of merged, and that's
Kind of on
everything.
his way out when Robinson got there.
Yeah,
About that era, right?
Yeah, Gervin was a 70s staple, right?
He played in the
Mid-70s.
80s, I think.
Nah,
He
yeah,
won
he
some
played
scoring
in the-
titles
Yeah,
in the
I'm
80s.
talking George Gervin's wheelhouse was mid-70s to,
Yeah.
you know, 80s.
Yeah.
Early 80s, but boy, what a shooter, and what highly underrated Hall of Famer George Gervin. But amongst
Iceman-
his peers,
Iceman's a pretty
he's
complimentary.
considered, you know, one of the greatest offensive basketball players.
And yet, when we always talk about give me your top 5, 6, 10 players, whatever, he rarely makes it. But you're right, he was awesome.
Oh, good.
4 scoring titles.
Yep.
And I'm going to say he probably even played with the Admiral at the end before
Yeah.
before he
They
retired.
could have intertwined. I mean,
But you're
David
right.
Robinson-
His wheelhouse was a few years, 6 years.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
around
Robinson came on, and
Yep.
you know, he's like my age, David Robinson.
Your
Who else?
age. Your age. Oh, yeah. Okay. And I'll give you a hint. We're talking about practice?
Yes.
Practice? We're
Well-
talking about practice.
But when he played,
He was awesome.
Yeah. So Allen Iverson is another big.
It's on
name.
the list.
It's on the list there.
And I'm going to say there's one other one that I thought would come to mind just as quickly as Ewing and Barkley. The mailman,
That's another good one.
which means Stockton goes along with that too, right?
That is correct.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's more, and you guys can send us, if we're missing some. Those are the ones that came to mind for me.
Those are the top ones I would think of. So
I'm sure we're missing one. I'm sure we're missing one or two, but
but I'm happy Charles Barkley didn't win one.
he thought he was going to win one,
Yeah, yeah.
on the Last Dance, right? In
That's
game
right,
2,
yeah.
right? They came back.
That's right. And-
Not to be.
Yeah, so he was in the news last week because not just because of the Last Dance, but Charles criticized Michael. Michael took ownership of the Charlotte team, and Charles kind of criticized MJ a couple years back, and MJ is now he's officially on the banned list of Michael Jordan. So Barkley is out with MJ.
So after he didn't win a championship against Michael Jordan, he's still mouthing off and
Yeah, because they were like brothers apparently for 20 years. But Charles is on the
played
outs.
on the Olympic team together.
He
right?
did, but Charles is on the outs with Michael. So once you're on the outs with Michael,
You're on the outs.
you ain't coming back.
And we did talk about it. Like I said, I love The Last Dance. It's been awesome. But I'm just surprised at some of the stuff. I didn't know he was. I thought he was much more reserved behind the scenes. I really do.
Nah, but
you brought it up.
I do.
And I said, you're right. He was a total icon. No question about it. He had to do it. But he was
He had to do it.
still the greatest player
Yeah.
ever to play the game. Right?
And you know
Without
what?
question.
He was at a level that only really he's achieved in the NBA. You know, he was the Beatles.
He was.
He was the Beatles,
Very good. Good analogy.
right?
Good analogy. But I just thought he was more. But really, stepping on Jerry Krause like that, what did Jerry Krause do wrong? I don't know. We're not behind the cameras. We don't know what went on. But Jerry Krause did a pretty good job. I'm sorry.
He did.
I don't know.
I mean, you
Is
know,
it his fault he was 5'2"? You know, Dudley Moore kind of thing?
well, a little bit heavier than Dudley Moore.
Talking height-wise.
Okay.
But that was interesting, right? The NBA guys that don't have rings, and like I said, I don't foresee us seeing much of a season from the NBA. And but hey, we're hoping for golf, and NASCAR's coming back, and in September they're going to run the Kentucky Derby. Really?
Yeah.
What else?
So speaking of the Kentucky Derby, we forgot to mention on Derby Day, we did the show, right? And the virtual. Did we talk about the virtual Triple Crown?
We did.
The winners.
It was awesome.
And I know we said going in, but Secretariat,
That was my pick.
yeah, beat Seattle Slew. Big Red came from behind, and I think American Pharaoh finished third in that virtual Triple Crown race, which was pretty cool, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So listen, they actually did run the Arkansas Derby, which is always a precursor to the Kentucky Derby and so
Yeah.
forth. And it was awesome. They actually split it. They did like two races for the Derby, right? So they're gonna pair off for the winning. But there was one, Governor Morris, and you know how governor is spelled back then in the 1700s and so forth. That's my horse going forward for the Kentucky Derby.
Hello, Governor.
We're not missing it. Last year, right? Jim Walsh, somebody had it. It was some World War II name or something. And he won.
Sir Winston.
Sir Winston. He was a winner. Governor Morris. That's my early sports with mono and mono Kentucky Derby pick.
Okay, so you're going with the Governor.
All right.
Hello, Governor.
But there was also the other horse that won in the other race was Nadal, named after, of course,
Rafi.
famous tennis player.
Rafi.
So keep him in mind too.
Yeah.
Because the Arkansas Derby is always always a good precursor, like the Louisiana and the Florida. But everything's changed.
Yeah,
Right.
so- Kentucky Derby slated for September, so
Yep.
hopefully Churchill Downs will. But again, it gets back to there isn't going to be 150,000 people, having mint juleps and wearing their
How weird
best,
is that going to
best
be?
Saturday spring clothes. So
Right.
we shall see.
The mini pearl hats.
The mini pearl hat.
For our hee-haw
Or-
fans.
Hi, I'm Carol Channing.
I'm Carol Channing.
Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
We used to argue who did the best Carol Channing.
right.
We're 11-year-old kids doing Carol Channing. How bizarre is that? How do we even know who Carol Channing was?
Can I have another mint julep?
Oh, mister.
Hello, Dolly.
Right, that's our entertainment piece. Doing Carol Channing. I'd rather do my Johnny Carson, which is, one of my best.
Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Okay. Well, listen, we're going to be wrapping up in a little bit, but a couple other things, Steve. I wanted to talk about this topic that just came up today about the NFL proposing some options for teams to be hiring minority coaches.
Okay.
Right? So if you hire a minority coach, you're going to get a better draft pick.
It's called the Rooney Rule.
And you know what? I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, is that what we've gotten down to, that we have to do this? There are a lot of minority coaches in the NFL, and they're awesome, right? Tomlin, I think, is awesome. You know, you got to admire what Anthony Lynn's done in San Diego. Brian Flores in Miami.
Three.
Okay, now you're squeezing the noose here. But okay, but I just don't think there's a bias against hiring minority coaches. They're getting their chances because they're the most qualified. Is it right to reward them, to say, you know, Marvin Lewis had a job for 10 years, he should have been fired, and
15 years.
Exactly. But he got his opportunity and so forth. Listen,
I get it.
I think Mike Tomlin and all these guys are awesome. And we're going to talk about one of the minorities. It's a notable event in sports and our notable passings, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But what do you think about that? You know, giving incentives and draft choices for hiring minority coaches.
Well, the Rooney Rule's been in effect for at least over a decade.
Which I think both you and I can concede that it wasn't...
Well, let's be real.
I mean...
Like you just said, there's three, top of our heads, 3 out of 32. Okay? I mean, I don't have an answer for it. So do you reward a franchise for hiring an African American as your head coach? I mean, it's still America. It's still, you own a business.
But guys
you
like...
still have the right,
I know.
regardless of race, gender, and all this other nonsense, of hiring who you feel is the best candidate. But let's be real. I mean, the NFL and Major League Baseball and all the sports, it's always been the recycled factory of guys that...
Right, Chan Gailey getting
whatever,
jobs.
He's coached for 30 years, and the guy could be, like, we brought up like a Jerry Glanville, right?
Exactly.
Jerry Glanville was the coach of Houston during, the game we referenced.
And then the Dirty Birds.
Right, so then he gets hired. I mean, but if you look at Jerry Glanville, if we just looked him up now...
Is he a great coach?
I mean,
no.
He's probably...
He was a con artist like Dennis Green.
I'd be lucky to see if he was even 500 in his career. But that's just one example of guys that the recycled... old boy network,
and I get that,
and that's what they're trying.
But
I
just don't think it's a slant on hiring minority coaches. There are a lot of great minority coaches out there, and they're going to get their job. They're going to get their, their day. They're going to be hired, and
it's not only the head coach; it's the front office. So, like a general manager. I mean, you had Jerry Reese with the Giants, obviously.
Ozzie Newsome.
Ozzie, Cleveland just hired a young kid to run the franchise out of Harvard. His name escapes me right now, but he's well qualified.
But Steve, my point is
Reggie McKenzie. At a time in
I just
Oakland.
hate that. My point is that we're still talking about this. We're talking a football coach. It doesn't matter what color he is.
But
the best.
It's the unwritten thing. That's
I know.
what it's all about.
Are we still doing this in
Apparently,
2020?
Yeah.
You
Because
really
the numbers reflect it. Yes.
And listen, I fully support just as many minority coaches
I
getting
do
jobs
too.
as can be, but
look at the numbers.
I know the numbers, but
So that it makes sense that they're doing something to try and incentivize a franchise to maybe, if you like both candidates, well,
and you're right.
Maybe we'll hire him and we get a little more compensation. Who knows? Is it the right thing? I don't know. But I understand the point of trying to advance the cause, if you will. Because
And I
there
fully
are
support it, but
plenty of qualified.
it's just hard for me to believe in
African-American
2020 that we still think there's some sort of a bias going on. It's beyond that. I mean, why is this happening? I mean, it's
Again,
the
I think-
21st century.
I think
and
it's the old boys network. It is. That's all it is.
isn't that old boys network going to die off
Yeah,
at some
it's
point?
going to. It's like the old South in the Civil War. Eventually
I guess.
it dissipates, right?
I guess.
That type of mentality,
You're right.
right? So,
But I just thought it was an interesting something that's being discussed, right? I mean, giving draft choice, position. You move up 10 slots if you
what?
do X.
They either do that or Jesse and the Reverend Al will send the troops in with their picket signs.
Right.
Okay, so we could have a long discussion on that.
It's just the best man for the job
and the
philosophy
extortion
that I
racket
have.
of Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton when
I got you.
you see what I'm saying?
I got you. But listen, before we move off of football, I just wanted to say you and I had an opportunity to jump online and throughout our show's history, we like to mention our alma mater, St. Joe's
Yes.
football program.
St. Joseph Regional Green Knights of Montvale, New Jersey.
And let's face it, the season's in jeopardy, or the way we knew it is in
Season
jeopardy.
is most definitely in jeopardy.
But we did have an opportunity to welcome the new head football coach at St. Joe's, Dan Morangi,
Yep.
who's got quite a resume. He's got, defensive coordinator for their national championship Don Bosco team and
Yeah.
so forth. But now he's fully entrenched. We had a webcast.
Yep.
It really was awesome to hear his opinions and
Yep.
views and giving us the state of affairs on high school football with in relation to COVID-19 and so forth.
And his philosophy on how he envisions running the program, and it was an opportunity for alumni, especially ex-football players like ourselves
To hear,
to welcome
you know.
to welcome him to the family. I
This
mean,
is a change. He's taken over for a really, outstanding coach in
Yeah.
Augie Hoffman and
Yeah.
so forth, who's always been gracious to
Yeah.
the Sports and Mono show. And
And-
we wish Dan the best of luck.
right,
it's
but during,
big spot.
But during the podcast there was an omission. I'd like to, for the record, and it was an unintentional mistake, but.
An oversight.
An oversight. Bert Ammerman was the head coach in the late '70s, right? And
He
then-
was our coach.
and
My
he
coach.
was our coach, but they forgot to
Great
mention
coach, by the way.
a guy for 2 years who took over the program was Bob Farini.
Who was my defensive coordinator as
Right.
my senior year, actually.
Right. And then, Farini was gone because, Tony Karsich became available, which is a no-brainer.
Of course.
So, so I just wanted to make, for our listeners that Bob Farini.
He did have a stint in between
Yeah.
some legends at St. Joe. And I
Absolutely.
consider Ammerman,
Absolutely.
Karsich, and Hoffman legends.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
There's no question. There's no question.
so my point was, Dan, you got big shoes to fill, but you seem more than up to the task. And,
Yep.
hopefully, we can get the season underway in the
We
safest
wish you the
possible
best
way.
of luck.
you know?
Absolutely.
But Steve, before we sign off today, our notable passings.
Yeah.
And one, I don't even know where to start, right? Jerry Stiller.
I know where we're going to start. We're going to start with you, Kruger.
Cougar.
George, there is no human fund.
I think you made it up. But anyway, Jerry Stiller, and not only one, but two shows.
Oh, yeah. Frank Costanza and Arthur Spooner, two outstanding.
I mean, the exact same role,
Yeah,
just
but-
different names, but
nailed them both.
nailed them both.
Right? And listen, Jerry Stiller was married to Ann Mira, who passed away, and they're the parents of Ben
2016,
Stiller.
which I heard.
Right?
Yep.
And, but, Jerry Stiller, Frank Costanza.
I'm going to bring you up a Jerry Stiller memory, which is almost obscure, but it was awesome.
Right.
The original taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 with
Absolutely.
Walter Matthau.
You bet.
It was awesome, and he was in it, and he played. Yeah, it was a dramatic role, but great movie.
Plays a dispatcher, that type of thing.
Robert Shaw, Martin Balsam,
Yeah,
of course.
Hector Elizondo. Achoo!
That's how the movie ended. I was going to say, give me the last words that were, spoken in Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
At you.
Absolutely.
Very funny. If you never saw it, watch it. It's a good good tribute
And
to
it has to
Jerry
be the
Stiller.
original. I
Exactly.
believe it was 1973 or something like that. So, but Jerry Stiller,
Yep.
great career, and of course, a lot of people when they heard the news. I think his favorite line, or a lot of people's favorite line, is when they think George is dead, and Steinbrenner's got to go tell Frank and Estelle, right? How could you trade Jay Buhner? You had a rocket of an arm. You don't know what the hell you're doing. So, R.I.P. Jerry Stiller. We could do an hour on that.
Absolutely, he's got quite a resume, and like I said, it's somebody from the comedic world we're gonna miss.
And then the other notable passing really was Bob Watson from baseball at age 74.
Yeah,
Well, first thing I thought about Bob Watson, not only GM of the Yankees and Houston Astros, first baseman, and played for the Yankees too, if I remember correctly.
I looked up his numbers.
But the first thing I remembered was I believe he's the guy who scored the 1 millionth run in Major League history.
That's absolutely accurate.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No question. That's standard.
Yep.
Right.
But Bob Watson
Had an 18 or 19-year career.
yeah,
I looked up his numbers.
pretty
Lifetime batting average for Bob Watson.
good. My guess would be, I would say 286.
That's even higher than I would have thought. I would have went in at like 279. 295.
Wow.
Drove in 100 runs twice.
Okay, I see that.
Actually had a pretty good, he played a stint with,
It was a good defensive first baseman.
yep.
So Houston, and
And he was the
And-
general manager for the Yankees
was-
when they won in
that's
'96,
right,
and went on to be the front office guy,
Yeah.
right? Which perfect example. Bob Watson qualified for the job,
Yep.
got the role,
Yeah,
but he was awesome, and 295,
yeah.
impressive.
I'm not surprised by that.
Some good years in Houston.
So Bob Watson, R.I.P.
Yep.
And then on the local scene for our high school fans, I just caught wind of it last night. There's a Hackensack running back who's 42 years old. Remember Joe Dawkins? Joe Dawkins was a hell of a running back at Hackensack,
Right.
and he went on to play at Penn State. But he fell on hard times. But Joe Dawkins passed away this week, locally. And I heard that yesterday. And for our high school fans, especially in the North Jersey area, a lot of people know who Joe Dawkins was. He was a special talent. So R.I.P. to him. Died too young at age 42.
Oh, very good on the local front.
Yeah.
Awesome. So listen, that's we wanted to certainly always end with that, and people that we remembered, and they were great at what they did. That's the kind of thing
Sure.
we talk about.
Sure.
So before we sign off, we have our
Yeah,
sponsor?
we want to thank our final sponsor is Di Filippi's Bakery up in Monticello, New York. And again, cooking through COVID. Go to the webpage, and if you want to donate, and it's for a great cause for families in need. And just go to the Di Filippi's website and check that out. So,
Yeah, loyal sponsor of the show. Appreciate
absolutely.
it. No question. So listen, a lot going on. We again wish everybody's families some health and
Yep.
during this crazy time, it seems like it's getting better. We can only hope so. Right?
Well, it can't get any worse.
But we're gonna fill you in next week, and in the meantime, watch some stuff you didn't expect to watch, and find out how cool sports was
Yeah.
back in our day.
You have any questions, comments? Always love it. sportswithmono@gmail.com. And we always love the feedback, and we appreciate our loyal listeners.
Yes, sir.
And we'll catch you next week. And
Okay.
have a great week, everyone.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We very much appreciate it.